Okay, yeah, thanks for joining us. I know it's just a little bit different, but probably the COVID year taught us a whole lot of new tricks anyway for some of this. But we're really excited. You know, typically the hardest class to recruit for a new staff is the first one because depending on when you get hired, you haven't had a lot of time to establish relationships with prospects and their parents and their coaches and all that. But we hit it pretty hard. We actually signed a lot more than I thought we would. If we got 14 to 15 total in December and January, we thought that would be a pretty good number, and we'd still be able to sign some, whether transfer guys or high school guys later. But we wind up signing probably a lot more high school guys than most people that are either in 1A or moving to 1A or FBS. Really athletic group. We have specific needs, particularly on the defensive line, defensive end, and at wide receiver that we think we addressed. And we still have room for another few prospects, probably be transfer portal guys, 3 or 4 maybe at the end of spring, but there also may be a high school guy or 2 still to be added to the list. So it's a very athletic group. We had 3 really good recruiting weekends that in January, and we were able to sell not only our school, which is got a lot to sell in itself, but obviously our move to FBS Division 1A and our new facility that'll be starting construction here in a few weeks. So it was a good recruiting cycle, very good for our first one.
We have questions for Coach Rodriguez. If you will, state your name and who you're with before you ask, please.
Coach Rodriguez are 16 players. That's a good bunch, and you mentioned yourself that's a little more than you thought you would get. Why do you think you guys were so successful in getting a large number of high school players?
There were a few of them that we had, or some of our staff had known about before we got here, and that always helped. Then there were a few that we had some connections with, like, for instance, a few guys from West Virginia that Coach Trickett and I knew from way back when that we were able to immediately get in contact with. And I think obviously the number one reason is we have such a great product here, if you want to call it that, at JSU and what's going on, not only with our football program, but with our institution. So, you know, the fact that we can show them and say, listen, have been a very successful 1AA school, very successful Division II school, and now look what we're doing as we move into Division 1A or FBS and into Conference USA. Look at the facility commitment and the commitment overall. And I think it caught a lot of guys' attention. Now, you sometimes people look at who else they had offers, and I understand looking at that, but you know, when I look at them and we evaluate them, and as we recruited them, we said we are going to sign guys that we think can play at the FBS or Division 1A level. So every guy that we signed, we didn't say that they were 1AA guys. We said they are Division 1A players that will help us win a Conference USA championship, and we evaluated them very quickly and felt good about it.
As part of the class, just breaking it down, you got a quarterback who has a really impressive resume, and you've got a couple of tight ends. You've mentioned before that tight ends are important to you, and for tight ends, I'm including the guy you signed in December. Could you talk about those two positions?
Yeah, particularly quarterback. We're probably going to still look at 1 or 2 to add. If we don't, I don't know if I have to, but we'd like to, because if any positions, we want a lot of competition at every position, but especially at quarterback. And we got a very exciting one that as soon as I watched him on film, you know, we liked him. And then his high school coach, I signed 2 of his players way back when I was at Michigan, 2 very good skilled players. So we had a relationship, trusted him. He did a great job with his program. And so, you know, Tayshawn was one of the guys we liked immediately, and we were able to get him on board. And as I said, we may add another one at the end of spring, but we may not. You know, the tight end position nowadays at all levels, those guys have to be so versatile, whether they play tight to the line of scrimmage or split them out wide or put them in the slot. In the last several years, we've been putting them all over the place. And that allows us to play 11 personnel, but be able to have a wide variety of formations. So we got athletic guys that we feel that can play in the box, big enough to play in the box, but also athletic enough to play outside.
Coach, SM Castle from the Gadsden Times, you mentioned athleticism a couple times. Is that something you guys specifically look for in this class?
Yeah, I think everybody wants big, fast, strong guys. You know, part of the issue, not an issue, but part of the thing happens when you're new. And we've told recruits this, that we don't know exactly what we have. I've watched several of our games from last year, and so you can get a little bit of an idea what you have returning, what their strengths and weaknesses are, what our needs are. But really, until we go through spring ball, we will really know exactly what we have from a depth standpoint, from a quality standpoint, from a talent standpoint. So we wanted to approach it as, okay, we've got these number of guys coming back. This is where we're short numbers-wise. Let's try to get as athletic as we can and then find a spot for them. So there will be several guys that we signed maybe that could play safety or corner or safety or linebacker, you know, running back or slot receiver. And so we had that in mind as far as getting the best athletes we can and then figuring out where we need to put them after spring practice.
You addressed it a little bit, but you got to watch some film, you got to watch, some games. Did that help you kind of fill some needs? Do you think you filled some needs in this class, or do you think that's still something that's once you get to spring ball you can figure out?
Yeah, I think so. In particular, the skill position offensively, it's actually, if you got a guy like we have, for instance, at safety, we signed a couple safeties that are really good offensive players too. And we sign them as safeties, but you can watch their athleticism running the football or playing wide out or what have you, and know that they can play somewhere, not only on offense or defense, but also on special teams. The same thing's true with wide receivers that we signed, or that we think we can play both inside and outside with them. And then with our offensive line, we're a little bit different with what we do up front. Everybody wants those 6'6", 330-pound guys, but for us to be able to play in our system, you have to be able to move, you have to be athletic, and you have to be able to play multiple positions because we want them all to learn at least not just guard, but guard and tackle. If you're a center, you need to learn center and guard. And so our offensive line class was recruited with that in mind, that these guys, several of them, if you read, I don't know if it's in their bios that you guys get, but several of them can play all 5 positions, and including center, which is critical that you have guys that can snap. So we had that in mind recruiting the O-line.
You got a pretty wide variety of guys from just different positions. Was that a goal of yours going in?
Not as much. We didn't really dress it as much. We just wanted to get guys that we thought they're good enough to win with. And that was the same thing is true as whether we signed a transfer guy. I thought initially coming in we'd probably go 50-50, half transfer portal guys and half high school guys. But we found a lot of really good high school players that were out there that fit what we wanted and had an interest. And so we just went after them. And again, like I said, we still probably have 3 or 4 spots left for transfer portal guys at the end of spring, and we'll know more then about our needs. But we just tried to get the best players we could get that fit the kind of, not just athletically what we do, but personality-wise. I mean, every coach wants, tough guys that love football, but we really addressed that. We tried to, as best we could in the 3 or 4 weeks we had to recruit. Let's find guys that love football and not like it, that love the work, that love the things you got to do to be good. Because let's face it, to be really good at this sport, you got to do a lot of things that probably ain't real pleasant as a player, whether it's lifting weights, running, conditioning, and all that kind of stuff. And I think to a man, we signed a bunch of guys that really love football, that want to embrace the type of work ethic they got to have success here.
Coach Chase Robinson with WKXX Fox Sports 102.9. Coach, I look at the guys you brought in and where they're from. It looks like you kind of even got out of the Southeast region. You brought in guys really from all over the country. Is that something you were looking at? Is that important as you make the move to FBS to kind of have a bigger footprint in recruiting?
Not necessarily. I probably just the opposite going forward. I think this year the first class is we bringing the staff in. Let's just find the best players we can with connections that we have right now. Going forward, I mean, we'll center and kind of concentrate high school wise on Alabama high schools. We're close to the border of Georgia, and so we'll still do some Georgia high schools in Florida and maybe some Mississippi, but that will probably concentrate more on that with high school guys. The transfer portal guys could be from everywhere, but this year coming in, I say coaches to our staff, you've got connections somewhere else. You know, we're so late in the recruiting process. Let's see what the best thing we can do and go forward. Now, that being said, I think we have such a great thing to sell here at JSU that, you know, if there's a kid from Texas or California or West Virginia or whatever, and he has a great interest in looking at us, why not, you know, look at him if we have connections with him and we understand where he's from or his high school coach or what have you. So we don't want to just pigeonhole just a certain area. You know, if coaches have experience recruiting everywhere, let's use that. But as far as a focal point each and every year, we'll start in state first with Alabama high schools.
If I could ask one last question,
Sure.
kind of switching gears. Coach Rodriguez, your contract is signed and delivered. Could you comment on having that out of the way?
Yeah, it really was. I didn't even think about it for the first 4 or 5 weeks, and then at some point, Greg and our folks wanted to get that done. That was easy. It was just I have an attorney that does contract work, and the school has one, and it was a very easy process to get done. Something we got done in, you know, one day, so to speak. And we talked about the terms obviously before I took the job, but then I didn't think about it again until, you know, a week ago when they said, "Hey, we got to get this thing signed." So we got it signed. I'm very appreciative of the support that not just myself but our staff has gotten since I've taken the job. Whenever it was in December, everybody here associated with the school has really been helpful. Everybody in the community. I mean, I know we're still on the honeymoon stage and all that kind of stuff, but it's been fantastic. Everything that I would have hoped for that it would be has been that, and we're going to do everything we can every day to make everybody proud of our staff and of our program.